Okay, we're continuing with the Holy Grail of Wisdom quotes by me, Pete Rogers. We're going in alphabetical order. This is Sir Walter Scott. He's the great Scottish novelist, okay, around early 1800s. And what he became real famous for was, he himself had a little polio and had some difficult times, and he was fascinated by the Highlanders, the people of northern Scotland that were kind of like the old school Scottish people, the Celtic ones, the barbarians, with the chieftains. And he traveled around the Highland areas and spoke to a lot of the people there, got a sense of all their stories, really studied what had happened with, Bonnie Prince Charles and all that stuff when the Catholics tried to make a comeback in Scotland and in the United Kingdom, for example. Okay, so anyways, his poetry and his books were super popular. And they did something very good for the Highlanders. They made the Highlander area very popular, and now it became a tourist attraction. People wanted to buy kilts and, Scottish ties, Celtic ties, and bagpipes and all that. So that was good. Let's see. His really popular book was called Waverley, and it was actually about an English soldier stationed in Scotland who later became very close friends with the Scottish and sort of joined with the Scottish Highlanders against the English. Here's a couple quotes by Walter Scott. "Oh, what a tangled web we weave when we first begin to deceive. All men who have turned out worth anything have had a chief hand in their own education." Yeah, regular schools are only going to give you a conventional education. This is what you need to know for your test. But to develop your knowledge on your own, you got to read and study and think on your own. Okay, here's a good one. "Without courage, there cannot be truth." And what I would say is without Christianity, you can't have truth. Because what I've seen is, I've been a doctor for many years, over 35 years, is that whenever money gets involved, most people just sell out. So you have to have Christianity where somebody says, you know what? No, I'm not going to sell out. I'm going to do what's right. And the only thing that can put you above money is, faith in God and the realization there's going to be a judgment day, so you need to do what's right. That which you do to the least of my brethren, you do unto me. You can laugh and say it's a joke, but then ask yourself why. Why are the journals all owned by big corporations? Why are they just full of lies and nonsense? Okay, why are the textbooks devoid of any information about nutrition, about the real pioneers in nutrition, health, and epidemiology and toxicology? Because we have switched to atheistic Darwinism, where there is no such thing as right or wrong. You can do whatever you want that you can get away with, and power just means money, and money's always right. That's the golden rule. He who has the gold makes the rules. And you can laugh, but it leads to a deterioration of all your public institutions and all your semi-pseudo-science institutions. People would say, oh, you don't need the church to have science. The opposite is true. You really can't have science without Christian ethics. You don't have to be a Christian, but you have to have Christian ethics. And if you don't, it just all goes corrupt. And that's where we're at right now. Science is more corrupt now than it's ever been before. Okay, Walter Scott continues. "For success, attitude is equally as important as ability." He says, so that's it for Walter Scott. The next guy we're going to talk about is Roger Scruton. He actually died recently. I forgot to get that in there. I'll have to add that in there. He was born in 1944. He's a British philosopher. And he's another one of these guys who realized that Western civilization is, falling into a garbage can and it's worth saving. So he did what he could to try to save it. And he talked a lot about aesthetics. Here's some quotes of him. "Good things are difficult to create, but they're easy to destroy. Beauty is vanishing from our world because we live as though it doesn't matter. The culture of a civilization is the art and literature through which it rises to consciousness and defines its vision of the world." Yeah, art, as Ayn Rand had said, is a concretization of metaphysics, meaning that you show what you value by putting it into art. And modern art museums are disgraced. The public should be outraged by them. It's an insult to have statues of feces in an art museum. It's an insult to have crap like Picasso in an art museum, okay? And the public school proles are so stupid they think, oh, the Mona Lisa is good art. No, it looks like an ugly freaking transvestite. It's disgusting. It should not be respected. The work of Picasso, he's a member of the Communist Party. It's crap. It stinks compared to real art. Take a look at the Pre-Raphaelite Brotherhood. Take a look at Edmund Leighton, okay? Take a look at Caravaggio, Raphael, Michelangelo, any of the great artists, the great French artist, Masonier, okay? That's real art. That takes real talent. You know it takes real talent when you know that you could never do it, okay? Something that only a highly skilled person could do. That's real art, okay? And this is important because it's how society is seeing, And again, if a Renaissance person came and they saw this stuff like we have in our modern art museums, they would go, "You people are a bunch of vile scum and filth." They would not go for it, okay? People should be offended by it. Because what's happening is you're seeing the history books are rewritten. So instead of saying the founding fathers of the USA, which were the greatest founding fathers of any country that ever existed, instead of giving them credit for being how wonderful and heroic they were, it tries to badmouth them. And then instead of saying we come from Western civilization, the greatest culture ever in the history of the world, here's our magnificent art, they put this fake crap in the school, they put this fake crap in the museums. That's disgusting and of low quality. So all of this is being done to rewrite history so that no one will want to maintain Western civilization. Because once Christianity and Western civilization are swept away, there will be no obstacle to complete slavery and subjugation. Okay, and the stupid public school pros are so stupid, and they have the mass, the gravitas to control what happens, that it's happening, and it's probably going to keep happening. Because there's probably the people who like have an intelligent brain and read and are cultured and are knowledgeable, they're so few. They're such a tiny percentage of the population. What are they, about 5%? That they're basically irrelevant. Okay. And then somebody comes along like myself and tries to teach people, and I'm shadow banned. I'm put in a little corner saying, "Shut up, shut up." Okay, and so there's not much you could do. But anyways, you do the best you can. All right, so continuing with Scruton's quotes. Modernism and architecture went hand in hand with socialist and fascist projects to rid old Europe of its hierarchical past. Yeah, if you look at the Soviet Union, the crappy gray apartment buildings they live in, they're awful, they're disgusting, okay? They're like animal cages. Same thing with modern so-called architecture in the United States. You'll see this big office building that looks like a bunch of animal cages, and this is as Tom Wolfe has said. He says, modern office buildings all look like animal cages, and then they have a statue of a turd in front. That's the truth. It's a disgrace. That's Tom Wolfe, the writer, who said that. Okay. All right, Roger Scruton continues. He said, conservatives resonate to Burke's view of society as a partnership between the living and the dead. Yeah, the unborn and the dead. Yeah, it's our obligation to preserve civilization so we can teach it to the younger generation. He said, we don't merely study the past, we inherit it. And that inheritance brings along with it some, duties of trusteeship, responsibility. Things fought for and died for should not be idly squandered. They are the property of others who are not yet born. Marxism owes its remarkable power to survive every criticism to the fact that it is not a truth-directed, but a power-directed system of thought. Marxism is so stupid, okay? What it basically says is, I'm going to take away all your stuff and you're going to like it. I mean, the foundational thing of Marxism is that you're not allowed to have private property. Okay, so what an asinine philosophy to say, I'm going to make you all poor and not let you own anything. And people are like, yay! Because they're so freaking dumb. Okay, it's evil. Look what it does. It destroys everything it touches. It destroyed Russia. It destroyed China. Okay, it destroyed, Vietnam. It destroys anything it touches. Roger Scruton. The core of common culture is religion. Tribes survive and flourish because they have gods who fuse many wills into a single will and demand and reward the sacrifices on which social life depends. Yeah, you have to have religion. You cannot get around that. America was founded as a Christian country. And if you think that's not true, then you just need to study a little bit. You will see they would pray and have church sessions in the same rooms where they would legislate, okay? Thomas Jefferson, if you actually read his biography, he was a religious fanatic by modern standards. And if you get rid of Christian ethics, and Christian ethics are being pushed further and further out of the public sphere every year, there's no moral foundation to the country. And then what's going to happen is big money is going to say, okay, you little poor plebeian shitheads, I own your ass. Do as you're told. That's already here, but that's going to be increased in the future. Okay, Roger Scruton continues. A writer who says there are no truths or that all truth is merely relative is asking you not to believe him, so don't. Art once made a cult of beauty, and now we have a cult of ugliness instead. This has made art into an elaborate joke, which by now has ceased to be funny. When art becomes merely shock value, our sense of humanity is slowly degraded. Yeah, look at Hollywood nowadays. It's like, global Satanism. It's totally freaking evil. It's, devil worship, okay? That's what it is. You can laugh about it, but that's what it is, and that's not good. Many people under the influence of science, and particularly neuro-nonsense, will say sacred is an old concept. It's just a hangover. But you can easily see that is not so, because everyone has a sense of degradation. There are things everybody values, which when they are spoiled, they are not just moved or destroyed, they are desecrated. Marriage does not exist for the benefit of the present generation, but for the benefit of the next. That's what I've seen too. Look at how crazy women in modern Western societies have become. I remember when I saw my mom's generation. My mom lived for her family. Her family was the most important thing in the world. Her whole life revolved on helping her family. Whereas I see all these modern women, all these modern females, and I'm talking about female doctors too. They just destroy their families, abandon their families, divorce, run around having affairs. They're unbelievable. I can't even say the things I've seen. They're so bad, okay? I know female doctors having 3-on-1s with all these men, and I know all these things. This is female doctors. I'm not talking about street prostitutes. I'm talking about female doctors doing these things, divorcing, multiple affairs, all kinds of completely irresponsible behavior you wouldn't even believe. So what I'm trying to say is they don't really care about their kids that much. They don't. I mean, don't get me wrong. I know a lot of them do, but I'm saying tons of them don't. They don't value. They have so little respect for the idea of a family and being a housewife that they totally abandon their family. They put their own selfish, momentary thrill-seeking ahead of their children, everything. I've been amazed by it, how bad their behavior has been. Okay, the nonsense factor in modern academia. Yeah, the universities have become a joke. They've been taken over by, the woke left craziness, okay? And they put all that nonsense ahead of education. A typical thing is I know a lady in an Ivy League equivalent college, and for her writing class, the teacher was a transsexual and forced everybody to give their pronouns, and you had to use the pronouns all the time in class, and if you use the wrong pronoun, your grade would get lowered. So everybody was scared to talk because they were afraid they would accidentally use the wrong pronoun. And the student who was telling me these things told me that they didn't learn anything about how to write. And this was at an Ivy League equivalent school. It's not an Ivy League school, but it's considered an Ivy League school. So anyway, I mean, it's ridiculous, okay? This is the kind of stuff that goes for education in the modern university. It's insane. Okay, you want to go to read and write, learn how to read and write. You should be reading the ancient Greeks, the ancient Romans, and studying the Renaissance in Italy, the Renaissance in the 1800s. And then from there, study whatever else you want, but learn about the golden ages, the high points of mankind. Modernism is not going to teach you much. I think we are losing beauty, and there is a danger that with it we will lose the meaning of life. Beauty matters. It is not just a subjective thing, but a universal need of human beings. If we ignore this need, we find ourselves in a spiritual desert. Art and music shine a light of meaning on ordinary life, and through them we are able to confront the things that trouble us and to find consolation and peace in their presence. Through the pursuit of beauty, we shape the world as a home, and in doing so we amplify our joys and find consolation for our sorrows. Being unpopular has never been easy, but it's a good shield against despair, being unpopular for a good cause. Anyway, so, the important point is it's Christianity, okay? Let's be honest. Christianity is where almost everything good comes from. Look at all the magnificent painting. 99% of it comes from Christianity. Look at all the good music. About 98% of it all comes from Christianity, okay? The best architecture, the cathedrals, the modern scientific method, the legitimate modern scientific method, the legitimate good modern universities. It all came from Christianity. And if you try denying that, you end up with garbage. The atheistic Darwinism is a failure. It just doesn't work. It creates mediocrity and lies and corruption and leads to destruction. Anyways, I hope you found that helpful.